I did not believe that the Spencer Pratt campaign was executing in the way it takes to win a modern election.
A lot of the media was saying, oh, Spencer Pratt, Spencer Pratt. Social media was saying, oh, Spencer Pratt, it's going to be Spencer and Bass, Spencer and Bass. But you called it.
She had her supporters going door to door, harvesting ballots, which is legal in California, whether you like it or not. They say donate the player at the game. She did that, and nothing would have stopped Spencer Pratt from doing that. If he didn't outperform, nobody's going to emulate him. His movement is done.
So it really was a social media standalone.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Smoke and Power. This is the podcast where a former lawmaker and a current lobbyist take you behind the scenes to tell you the things, the truths that people do not always reveal about our political process. And today we're going to discuss and debate something that a lot of people are taking for gospel truth, which is the recent race in Los Angeles where Spencer Pratt ran for mayor and he lost. He finished third in the primary. Did that somehow change the dialogue? Did it change the way that people are going to run in the future?
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about this because I know, Mike is based down in Southern California. He knew most of the people who were running in that race, and you really had your finger on the pulse of that. I think you called it early. A lot of the media was saying, oh, Spencer Pratt, Spencer Pratt. Social media was saying, oh, Spencer Pratt, it's going to be Spencer and Bass, Spencer and Bass. But you called it. You said, he's not even going to make the top two. And, kind of shocked me that you were so confident. And you said, no, he's not going to make the top two. So my questions for you are this. How did you know he wasn't going to make the top two? That's my first question for you. Secondly, I know he didn't run as a Republican, but can a Republican or an independent make the top two? And thirdly, my question for you is he going to have is there going to be a lasting legacy from what he did by maybe a more legitimate candidate?
I'll answer 1 and 3, and then we'll come back to 2. So number 1, how I knew. I knew because I did not believe that the Spencer Pratt campaign was executing in the way it takes to win a modern election. Now, what I mean by that is he and his supporters made some very, very good videos. They were clever, they were catchy, they had a high production value, and frankly, many of them went viral. And it seemed like there was such a willing reception from those videos that people like me, sort of overestimated even I overestimated his support a little bit. But that being said, when I saw him doing things like going into parts of Los Angeles that had voted 90% for Karen Bass and campaigning there, first of all, that's wasted time. It's wasted resources. And on a campaign, really, you never have enough money, you never have enough time. And this hubris to think you're going to go into a place that was like 90% for one of your opponents, and you're going to somehow switch these people. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of politics.
Can I ask you a question about that then?
Sure.
But didn't Trump have a little success with that? Or no?
Trump had limited success around the edges with the small degree of swing voters that still exist, with moving, enough working class whites, enough union whites and union Hispanic voters, and some Hispanic voters, some conservative Catholic voters into his column. We're talking 1 or 3 or 5 points, enough to win a state that was 1% state either way. This was a very different race. You needed to have raw votes to get in the runoff. You had to get close to 30%. And the main reason, it's not just that, it's not just wasting time, but the main thing is campaigns can typically do very clever YouTube videos, or they can be very clever in their door-to-door race in the field. They very rarely can do both. And rather than going out there like Nithya Raman, the person who actually finished second in this race, or she might have even passed Karen Bass to finish first, she had her supporters going door to door, harvesting ballots, which is legal in California, whether you like it or not. They say donate the player at the game. She did that, and nothing would have stopped Spencer Pratt from doing that. He could have gone door to door and made sure that every Republican, every independent, every voter he had identified as supporting him voted, but he didn't really execute on that. So that's how I knew he wasn't going to win. But I'll tell you something far, far, far more interesting. And this is your third question. And this is, was the Spencer Pratt phenomenon something that's going to be emulated? Did he change the dynamic in California? And the answer is to be seen. And I don't mean, oh, let's see how the next mayor's race is run or blah, blah, blah. This is what I mean by that. I used to work for a very, very brilliant member of Congress. And after every election, we would baseline certain votes so that we knew which candidates had overperformed and which candidates had underperformed. Now, a lot of times people will say, oh, that congressional district was a Biden plus 10 or like blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, that's one way of measuring the metric of that district. But a better metric is to find a down ballot Democrat who nobody has heard of, who mounted no campaign, and who has a generic name. So what you're doing is you're eliminating the excitement from the top of the ballot. You're eliminating the Trump effect. You're also eliminating ethnic bases. You're eliminating the effective campaigns. So again, you got to find somebody who is down ballot, not top of the ballot, a race that nobody cares about. Number two, there couldn't have been a campaign. You don't want there to be a campaign because sometimes campaigns can obviously move the needle. And number three, you don't want anybody who's got like an ethnic base or they can say, oh, that, they started. Okay. You just want like somebody named Jack Smith running for state controller as the Democrat. That is the true metric of the blind. I went to the polls and I marked Democrat vote. Okay. In our case, the race that I think came closest to being the metric for that was Shirley Weber, Secretary of State. Very nice, pleasant name. By the way, she's a very nice, pleasant lady.
Yeah.
She did not mount a campaign. She didn't have to this time on a huge campaign. And on top of that, it's not an obvious ethnic name, right? She happens to be African American, but it's not like she came with like a large Hispanic voter base or a large Asian voter base, like nothing like that. So if you look at the Shirley Weber vote in Los Angeles versus the Republican, I want to see the statistics of whether Spencer Pratt outperformed that Republican. That's what I want to see. I want to see precincts that Shirley Weber won, that Spencer Pratt won. I want to see people who voted for Shirley Weber, right? Generic Democrat on ballot, and voted for Spencer Pratt. That's the only real way if he outperformed. And you know what? If he didn't outperform, nobody's going to emulate him. His movement is done. And there's people who already said he didn't outperform Caruso in the primary. Yes, Caruso spent a lot of money, and Caruso was not technically a registered Republican at the time. But you know what? If you're going to try to win based on the guy who just ran and lost, you got to outperform him. That's the only way to win. And so my answer is I'd like to see those statistics and see if he outperformed his base. And if he didn't, then he if he underperformed, and there's people who are saying he underperformed Trump. And if that's accurate, then it really is not a movement.
So it really was a social media standalone, right? Yeah. And then people who were echoing the social media for their own purposes. And a lot of people who were echoing that social media weren't even in California and definitely weren't in Los Angeles.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If it is accurate, that's some people are saying, which is that he underperformed Trump in Los Angeles in like dark blue, deep blue, 85% Democrat Los Angeles. I mean, if he underperformed Trump, I mean, how many votes did he really bring into that tent, right? I mean, the answer is he probably didn't bring too many. He actually lost.
Let me ask you one question on top of that, and that is, do you think that Nithya Raman, who is a socialist, I mean, she was a DSA. She's a DSA member, which are, DSA. I think did she run as a Democrat this time? Did she change to Democrat? I don't.
Well, Mayor of Los Angeles is a nonpartisan race, and so is City Council. So your registration does not appear on the ballot. There is also no Democratic Socialist Party in California.
You're right. You're right.
They call themselves a party, but most people are registered Green or Democrat or Socialist. They're not registered. She can't necessarily go away from that, but it remains to be seen. Like, does she run to the middle? Does she say, Karen Bass, I'm to the right of you on these issues? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But I do know this. There have been a number of long-term Democrat big names who have been booted out of office in Los Angeles in the last 2 or 3 years by Democrat socialist members. It's
Leon, Miguel Santiago,
Gil
used to winning a lot of elections, and they could
that's right.
there.
That's right. And they've been beat by these people who are in their early 20s and they're members of DSA. So we'll see what happens. It'll be very interesting. Again, just think that this is an interesting smoke and power issue because it lets you see what happens behind the scenes. And Mike, I really appreciate all your experience on this stuff. I think it really helps. I love listening to it. So,
And coming back because we will make a prediction in the LA mayor's race very, very soon.
and if you think Mike is full of shit, let us know in the comments if you disagree with him. Yeah. All right, man. We'll see you guys next time.